Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 2Knutty's YouTube channel. I appreciate all the love I got on the first video about the research. If you haven't checked that out, make sure to check out the description and link below to be able to check that video out. It goes over everything you need to know about research. I appreciate all the love I got there, and I'm glad some of the comments came through and giving me some of that feedback. Please make sure that on this video you specifically also do that again. I know I'm sort of doing this VOD style sort of YouTube video. Some of you enjoy that, some of you don't. I just prefer this type of style because I don't have the editing software yet, nor do I have the editing skills, so I'm looking forward to in the future being able to do something like that. Also, just before we dive in a little bit further, I just want to talk about the Twitch ban. So yes, I'm banned on Twitch. It is indefinite. We are trying to get an appeal currently. I don't want to go into too much more detail about that because I don't know what that does to impede Twitch's process, but if you want, feel free to be able to DM me. If you're hearing anything about my ban, and it's not directly from me, there's a good chance that it's not true. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the patch notes for today. So this is going to be sort of a reaction video. I very briefly went over the patch notes just to make sure that they were actual patch notes and not simply bug fixes. And that turns out to be what it is. It should be a very different type of patch note than we've seen in the past. Specifically, they're looking more of a direction towards editing scrap, which we didn't actually see a huge difference of between closed beta and early access. So let's go ahead and dive straight into it. So, talking about the early access hotfix. Now, I do want to point out one thing that I noticed at the very beginning of this. Usually, they title these blog posts to say something along the lines of early access. I don't know, 6.1 or something like that. They just said early access hotfix. Previously, I thought that early access was going to actually last for a while. Because it specifically is labeled like this, it's making me think that maybe early access isn't going to be as long as some people thought. We know that the full launch of the game is going to end towards the end of the year, but with this, maybe we're going to see it a lot sooner than we thought. But let's dive straight into it. I'm first going to talk about the specific patch notes, just listing them out. Then I'm going to give you an analysis, and lastly, I'm going to tell you how or what I think they should have done differently. And yeah, let's jump straight into it. It's been an incredible week 1 of early access, and we want to thank you guys all for playing. This patch will drop tonight or tomorrow for some of you NA people at 2 a.m. PST. That is 5 a.m. EST and 10 a.m. BST. I don't know how to translate that into EU times. There will be no downtime, so you're good. You're going to notice the change between one game and the next without having to do an update. So specifically, they're addressing cheating and exploits. We've closed a lot of loops in terms of the exploits and fiction issue that allowed player names to visually change midway through the match. That did make it really difficult to submit a player report. Specifically, those of you who were in my last stream, we were having a huge issue where we were getting stream sniped by a hacker who kept using my name to be able to avoid a ban. I'm glad they fixed that, made it a lot easier to be able to tell who to ban. I think we accidentally reported somebody else the first time around, and then the hacker backed out and went to our lobby next time. We knew that 100% wasn't them. And then this is the big change that's coming into into the crafting, which is going to make a huge change. So to begin with, when you load into a game, if you've seen our stream or my stream, we focused on always trying to get a lot of scrap, get up to level 4, and then start pushing players almost immediately, and sometimes even getting supply drop. This basically nerfs that strategy. The reason why is because, as you can see right here, but many players are rocketing past the early game due to low scrap costs and high rewards. So basically, splitting up to be able to hit all these different scrap dumps, hitting level 4, made it so we had purple armor, your signature weapon, your sub weapon, additional scrap for crafting thermal boost and heals, and I mean, you were set. You could buy a vehicle, you could get the supply drop. So they decided to nerf that a little bit, specifically upping the last little bit of stuff that you craft, the last weapon that you craft, the last little bit of shields that you craft, so on and so forth. So they moved rare weapons from 400 to 600, or 50% increase, epic weapons from 500 to 800, legendary from 600 to 900, rare shields from 400 to 600, epic shields from 500 to 800. It says legendary shields. I don't know how you do legendary shields inside of this game. I personally have not crafted them. It might have something to do with J, though. I haven't specifically played J. But they moved that from 600 to 900. And then they decreased crafted consumables that include thermal boosts, your biofoams, your I guess it doesn't count your ammo boxes, and then your stim. So it moves all those from 2 to 1, and then it decreases the amount of scrap that you actually receive from 525 to 450. So they increased end game loot by a lot, and then they decreased the amount of scrap that you get overall. That makes it dangerous in terms of being able to get end game builds and starting to make you choose between being able to craft biofoams or thermal boosts, or even crafting some of the higher end loot, having to pick between your shields and possibly your weapons. And then more on, we go to looting player weapons. So now, or previously, you didn't get much rewards for PvP fights. In fact, I would tell our entire team, let's not bother with this. We need scrap, we need XP. We don't want to deal with this right now. It's going to take 2-3 minutes of our time. There could be a Callie in the group that could just run off, and we barely get any type of XP. Well, good thing is now they sort of adjusted that. Upon wiping a squad, they will drop all of their weapons, including signature weapons. That makes it so that way it's a bit more approachable, especially early on, to be pushing some of these groups. You find a 3-man, you can see they have green armor and possibly their signature weapons. It's a possibility to take them out. That way you don't even have to craft your own signature weapons. They fixed the friends list glitch that was happening, specifically between Steam and Epic accounts, which is a very good thing. And then they had a whole lot of bug fixes. Can I just say that this solvency right here is huge. The desync issue was a huge problem, specifically for Lord Grim, who I was grinding with for quite a while, would desync twice, 3 times a game. It was crazy. It costed us games. I'm really glad they fixed that. They fixed collision. I'm not specifically sure what was happening there, but yeah, they fixed that. Lobby issues. It looks like they fixed some of the server issues. Yeah. So they fixed the Heartseeker and Maverick not being able to craft a signature weapon challenge. I know that was an issue for some people that were struggling. It was very frustrating because you have to spend a lot of resources to be able to get up to that. And then Minimap and Pings, they fixed an issue where you were missing some icons. That's pretty important. And that's also huge. Enemy ping no longer covers the player. That was a huge issue where we would ping somebody and then it literally was like a huge dot on top of them. You couldn't actually see what you were shooting at. You just had to spray and pray. Adjusted the normal by reducing the safe radius, starting around the questions. That was done. Okay, so it looks like they basically just shrank the circle size, made it so that way it's a bit more pressure on PvP sites. We made improvements to the collapsing storm to reduce long runs for players who get caught on an unlucky side. So I guess basically they're trying to make it more circular instead of zones pulling one direction. It's going to probably try and stay inside of the middle. And yeah, that sounds like the entire patch note. I will specifically link this in the description below so you guys can read it yourselves if you want to. But let me talk about some of the analysis I'm having. First off, the addressing cheats and exploits. This is huge, right? Every single game, it seems like, struggles with cheating. It doesn't matter if you're as popular as Warzone or Overwatch or Apex. All of these different games struggle with cheating. Please do not get frustrated at developers for cheaters. It is not their fault that people are selling cheats online for their game. While they can do a little bit better to be able to put resources towards cheat preventions and exploits, there's only so much that they can do on their side. Especially with Midwinter being a smaller sort of organization, please do not put so much pressure on them and the fact that people are cheating in their game. It is early access. It makes it more vulnerable. They do use EAC, which is a very popular anti-cheat for a lot of other companies, but unfortunately it can't catch everybody. Just please do your job. Clip whatever's happening, report it in the bugs and feedback channel inside of the Discord, and please just keep on top of that, guys. You're going to be the solution to this, not the company and not cheaters. You're going to be it. Next, onto adjusted crafting costs. If you heard us talk about it, we didn't particularly like the fact that you had to split up at the very beginning of the game, risk a lot to be able to get as much scrap as possible, along with be able to hit the XP and stuff. And then, like, our strategy was so perfected that, again, 9 times out of 10, we had a car, we had purple shields, we had signature weapons, our wildcard weapons, enough scrap to be able to craft whatever else we want, and enough to be able to hit supply drop if we were close enough or thought it was worth it. So, while I do agree with nerfing scrap, I think they went the wrong direction. The reason why is because when you nerf not only how much you get, but you also nerf when you also nerf the cost for the amounts, meaning that basically you would have to hit 2 dumps. Okay, now this is 2 dumps of scrap just for you. Keep in mind, whenever you pick up scrap, you divide it between everybody. So you would actually have to hit 6 total dumps to be able to get a legendary weapon. Now, while I don't think that everybody should be able to get a legendary weapon right off rip, 6 dumps is a little excessive. If there's 20 teams and you need to hit 6 dumps to be able to get your legendary weapon, imagine if everybody tried to do that. That's 120 dumps you need just for legendary weapons, and there's nowhere near enough. I strongly disagree with the direction that they went in terms of this, because you have to keep in mind this also impacts your wildcard weapons. I personally run the blue shotgun and the Argonaut on my Valora, and so that means I have to spend 1200 scrap, or I have to hit 12 different dumps to be able to get near this. Now, oh well, Nutty, you do get scrap from going to camps, don't you? Yes, but it's not only is it RNG, but it's also like how much scrap do you actually need to be able to get endgame. I do agree with trying to force people to, not have full kits. You can't have a legendary weapon with epic shields, with 20 biofoam and all of that. But the problem is that when you nerf it this hard, you make it so that way my team is still able to get probably blue shields with probably purple signature weapons, and maybe not a craftable wild card, but maybe we still have enough to be able to hit supply drop to be able to make up for it. On top of that, my biggest disagreement with this change is the crafted consumables from 2 to 1. That impacts everybody. It doesn't matter if you're crafting biofoam, thermals, or stims. If you are trying to craft thermals, which are extremely important inside of the game, you're nerfing that. That means more people are going to die to the cold. It's not a very fun game when the biggest killer inside of the game is the storm or environment. The biggest killer inside of the game should always be players, and I feel like that's going to significantly change with just this consumable change. Again, you're talking about hitting 2 dumps for 3 thermals, and I probably go through 6, 7 thermals inside of the game. And it's not even my fault. It's that fires are relatively difficult to be able to find for me. Now imagine if you're a casual who's new to the game and you don't know where all the fire spots are, it's going to be relatively difficult for you to be able to find. I strongly disagree with the direction that they went with the crafting nerf. I think they should have gone the other direction and made it easier to be able to craft. It is much better when people are on full kits, and maybe nerf the end, or sorry, the sort of end part of the spectrum, including legendary weapons. If they kept legendary weapons at 9, or they kept all of these changes and maybe just buff the amount of scrap that you get from caches, I would totally agree with that. But that's just not a popular direction to be able to go to. You're talking about having to hit 15 plus dumps to be able to remotely look at getting half of your loadout. So I strongly hope this change. Now, on the flip side, you don't necessarily need to craft everything. It looks like they did make somewhat of a small change in terms of being able to grab weapons off of dead players. That is somewhat of a good thing. I don't necessarily agree with being able to drop signature weapons and being able to pick that up. The reason why is because some of the signature weapons inside of the game are way too powerful and need somewhat of a nerf in their current state. And if they're planning to keep them on the more OP side of things, that means that signature weapons are going to get out of control. I'm specifically looking at blue and purple Halden strike rifle. I'm looking at some of the sniper rifles in some of the game. I'm looking at Valoria's gold shotgun. I'm looking at Cruise's gold SMG. These guns are going to be going mad, and everybody's going to be running the same meta, and it's really going to be almost a delay. And I don't want to develop my signature weapon because I could run into a fight with somebody who has their signature weapon already. I think the strategy is just not going to be a solid one. People are going to only focus on shields and crafting possibly their wild cards, and that's going to be it. People aren't going to be using their kit the way it's supposed to be. I strongly recommend that they reanalyze exactly what they did with the crafting system and hopefully go back to or go the opposite direction and make it easier to find crafting material, to make it easier for casuals to be able to stick together, and they'll be able to start building up their end game loadouts. And then it's also not in here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I know there was also an additional, um, apologies, an additional, there's an additional patch note inside of the game. Okay, I can't really, it looks like I can't really find it. So I'm going to just try to recreate it off of my memory. So they actually changed crafting a little bit in terms of the war song. It was specifically the War Song, the Predator, and the Quicksilver. They changed it to a Tier 1 basic research, which is kind of interesting. So that doesn't mean that they're moving the War Song from a blue tier to a common tier to be able to craft easier. They're just changing it so that way you can get some of the better wild cards in the earlier game. So what that's referring to is if you remember when you were a wee little lad and all you had was this tier 1 research, if you go into the wild card, now you're going to be able to craft the Quicksilver, the War Song, and now the Predator early on. I kind of disagree with specifically the Predator on that. I think that that basically nerfs Tariq. Tariq players don't play Tariq to be able to use a stun mine. The Tariq players play Tariq to be able to use a sniper. So nerfing that I don't necessarily agree with. I do think it's kind of okay for the Quicksilver and the War Song to move early on because I think it's a positive thing for early on characters to be able to have, or sorry, early on players to be able to have some of the better items. Specifically, I've advocated for them to be in a soft lock until they hit tier 2 or even tier 3 research, since some of the items in tier 1 and tier 2 are so vital. But yeah, I mean, that is kind of the entire video, guys. That's all the patch notes inside of the game. I've tried to keep it on the shorter side of things, but overall, I think some of the changes inside of this game are going to be a net harm to the game. I've already explained the crafting and stuff. I think that you're just going to see a lot of people, specifically solo queuers, struggle with even getting blue armor and maybe even their signature weapon, even if they're running a green signature weapon. So I would strongly, I don't see the statistics on the back end. Midwinter can know exactly what they're doing, but I hopefully, they get an idea. This is the wrong direction. You don't want to nerf the higher end players. You want to buff the casual players up. In this specific scenario, I don't think that's always the case, but overall, I think in this specific scenario, it's a harmful thing. And with that being said, I am likely going to start moving to a YouTube and Facebook stream setup just to be able to keep up the updates, keep up the grind. I also think that maybe I'll start doing like daily streams inside of the Discord, just joining a channel and then having my stream up and then requesting that individuals who want to go there and watch. That way you guys can also, if you just want to unmute and talk to me a little bit, maybe while I'm solo queuing or whatever, and asking me specific questions, I think that's like a little bit more interactive. But overall, let me know what you guys think. I'm planning on also releasing a beginner tip video, possibly a tier list video, and then also possibly an advanced map strategies video later in this week. And yeah, if you guys have any more questions, comments, anything like that, please leave it in the comments below. And again, make sure to check that description if you want to see these patch notes for yourself, or you want to check out the research video. This is 2Knutty signing off, and thank you guys so much.